Welcome to Midweek Mysteries, and thank you for being here. I am your host, Nick Ryan. I'd like to start the show by saying thank you to our listeners and, of course, our patrons. All of your support makes the podcast possible. As always, we enjoy giving a personal shout-out to our newest Patreon supporters at the beginning of our full-length episodes, which air every Sunday. So, if you're a new patron, be sure to tune in. Today's Midweek Mystery comes to us from Roberto. Roberto's story is called Knock Knock. Roberto says, "Hello, Nick. I've been a follower of your podcast for some time, and always wanted to share some stories about what has happened to me over the years. Some of the events have been while being alone in my room, and others while in company, especially when I was living with my mother. Most of the events are really short stories about happenings, but really bizarre nonetheless. As background, while living with my mother at my childhood home, I experienced some of the most bizarre sounds and knockings around the house. The ones I really remember are the ones when I was in my room, the room I occupied from ages 8 to 20 before I moved away. I spent a lot of my time in that room. I have always been a really shy person, and it was really difficult for me to meet new people and socialize, so I didn't really go out, and spent most of my days listening to music and playing guitar. I went through a lot of phases, as any teenager goes through, but the most dramatic was a dark phase, interested in the occult and paranormal, but really just as a cultural thing, not really to summon anything or harm of any kind. I don't know if that influenced what happened to me. Also, around 18 years old, I started to have sleep paralysis, where I could see silhouettes around my bed and peeking around my cracked door. Also, sometimes I used to listen to something or someone walk around my bed when I was half asleep, feeling its presence just going from one side to another. That's when my panic and anxiety started to come up, as I couldn't stand seeing the shadows and silhouettes on a cracked open door, and couldn't fall asleep while feeling something surrounding me in the dark. Most of the time, I spent my nights on my computer, which sat in front of a window facing an exterior hallway which led to the street, listening to music and getting really into it. Until one day, I noticed strange knocking over the music, something or someone knocking on the glass on the window, as someone knocks when waiting to be let in. I just thought it was my dad making sure I wasn't making too much noise with my big speakers. Then I noticed the time. It was 2 a.m. I ran to the kitchen that had a window perpendicular to the hallway, from where one could see my bedroom window too, just to see who was there knocking. But there was nothing there. But as strange as it sounds, I could actually see the glass moving, exactly as when someone knocks on it. I just stood there, staring at it until it stopped. This kept happening over a few months, me being up late at night on my computer listening to music, and the knocking on my window or knocking on my door. It was always between 2 and 3 a.m. I knew it wasn't my mom telling me to keep it quiet, because my parents' bedroom was on the other side of the house, and I always knew how loud I could get without annoying people. One time I was in my bedroom with a friend. We were on my bed eating. We bought some burgers and ate them in my bedroom, listening to music. Then we heard the knock, really loud banging on the window. I thought it was going to break the glass. My friend stood there shocked and asked, "Who is it?" Nobody answered. Then he ran to the kitchen window to try and catch who was knocking, and again, there was no one there. We have always loved cats, so we had adopted 3 strays since they were little, and they have always lived with us. One day, the 3 cats started meowing at the kitchen window and didn't stop. It was dark, around 8 p.m. They kept meowing until one of them climbed out of the window and just stood there, staring at a corner of the hallway, not moving, just staring at nothing, or nothing I could see. It was in some kind of trance, and I kept calling its name, but it was there in this kind of trance. I waved my hand in front of its face, and he didn't even blink, until I tapped its head, and it just looked at me before returning its gaze to the corner. I even took pictures of the corner and of the cat. I lit a flashlight and turned on the hallway's light. Nothing was there, and the cat didn't move. After 10 minutes or so, the cat climbed in through the window, calmly and really slow, as if nothing had happened. It was strange. My mom has always been a firm believer of vibes, intentions, and energies as a good Mexican mom. One day we were getting ready to go out to the grocery store, ready with keys in hand and about to open the door, which is worth mentioning. We proceeded by a porch with a gate, and no one could get to the door from the street. Also, the front door could be seen from the bathroom window. As I was ready to open the door, with my mom beside me, with my keys in hand, and as we stood in front of it, we heard someone knocking. Really, really loud knocking on the door in front of us, like when someone tries to be let in, and wants to be heard. My mom freaked out and took a few steps back with an expression of shock on her face, looking at me and not talking, but asking with her expression, "What is that?" I just looked at her and didn't say anything, trying not to freak her out more. Then she proceeded to run to the bathroom window, which faced the front door. I could hear her say, "There's no one there," then ran to the kitchen and grabbed a vial of holy water she always has around, as a good Mexican mom, and threw some on the door, opened the door, and threw some on the outside too. After that, we didn't hear anything again. Roberto's second story is called Not Wanted. Roberto says, "Not so much time ago, maybe a year or so, me and my girlfriend decided to move in together, and we looked for a place for us, but there were few. It was during a big migration of people from Central America, and our city was almost full. Nobody could find any vacant housing for rent, and the ones vacant were awfully expensive. My girlfriend proposed that I move in with her, as she was already renting a house with a friend, and the friend went back to live with her mom, so I said yes. I remember the times where my girlfriend called me in the middle of the night, around 11 p.m. to 12 a.m., crying and shaking in fear of something. She didn't know what, but she felt insecure. She was alone and felt anxious and really upset, and I had to pack my clothes and go keep her company. When I got there, she was really anxious and shaking. She used to say she was afraid of something and couldn't even turn off the light and leave the room. I just thought we'd make each other company, and whatever it was, we'd get over it, and maybe it was only the feeling of being alone. I moved in, and we were fine, for a while, until her mom and my mom started to tell us that they didn't feel well in that house. They didn't feel like visiting because something wasn't letting them be at peace with us. And yes, we didn't get lots of visitors, besides my dad when something would break and he'd go help us fix it. Sometimes I spent the night watching movies or series, and she'd be in bed sleeping. Then the feeling of dread and fear of something would come over me. I used to feel like I had to run and hide because I felt someone or something was watching me. I couldn't be in the dark in that house, not even to sleep. I had to keep a light on in the hall and crack the door a little for the light to come through, or I'd feel anxious. Sometimes when I was alone, when my girlfriend went to visit her mom, I'd had to keep the music on really loud, or I'd keep hearing noises around the house, like something sitting on the bed. It would squeak a little when someone would sit down or get up. We were sleeping in bed one night, with the hallway light on, and a ray of light coming through the cracked door. We used to set the bedroom waste bin to keep the door from closing. It was a round, plastic bin, and it was very flexible, and it would bend with little pressure, but it would come back to shape once the pressure was off. Then one day, the weirdest thing happened. There were no air drafts anywhere. It was winter, and we would know if there was one. It was 3:13 a.m., and I woke up. I just opened my eyes, and I laid there, watching the hallway's light. The door was cracked with the waste bin. Then the door tried to close on its own. Something was trying really hard to close it and leave us in the dark room, because it would really press it, and the waste bin would get really deformed with the pressure. It wasn't giving up, and tried to push it and shove it shut several times. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was frozen in fear, just watching the door moving on its own, pressing against the plastic bin. I managed to gather the courage to get up sweating in fear, and say, "Go away," and open the door. That was the last time that it happened, but we kept hearing noises, or at least I kept hearing them at night, as my girlfriend is a heavy sleeper. We stayed at that house for 6 months together, and my girlfriend managed to stay there a year before I moved in. We got married and bought a house. We moved in, and now everything is fine. I swore that I'd never go back to that house again. Cheers. As we come to the end of this edition of Midweek Mysteries, I'd like to say thank you to all of you for tuning in and supporting the podcast, and a special thank you to Roberto for writing in and sharing his experience with all of us. Until next time, I hope you all have a safe and healthy rest of the week, and we'll see you back here on Sunday for our next episode. If you or someone that you know has witnessed something unexplainable, and you'd like to have your story shared on the podcast, please contact me at paranormalmysteriespodcast@gmail.com, or visit paranormalmysteriespodcast.com and click on the Tell Your Story link. Please remember, no matter how insignificant or outlandish you believe your experience may seem, I'd like to hear about it. You can also connect with us by joining our forum and by following us on social media. All of our contact information can be found in the show notes. If you'd like to support the podcast, please be sure to subscribe to the show and share it with your friends. If you're interested in taking the next step and becoming a patron, you can visit patreon.com/paranormal mysteries. Benefits include ad-free episodes and early access to select shows. New episodes of the Paranormal Mysteries Podcast are produced every Sunday, with a new Midweek Mysteries airing every Wednesday, and they're available on all of your favorite podcast apps. From all of us at the Paranormal Mysteries Podcast, thank you for listening, and please remember, don't wait for the unknown to come to you. Get out there and find it.